clients trying to get in crisis because of the corona,
Uh,
the COVID-19. It's been a lot of circumstantial situational mood changes that I have to target, but we will get into that.
yeah, I definitely get that. My mother's an ER nurse and she was exposed. So
Oh,
she had to be in quarantine for 2 weeks. Gratefully, it wasn't symptomatic, but she still got exposed and we have a big family. So
wow.
that was the biggest thing. There's 8 other people that live in the house.
Thank God your mom's not symptomatic. She's doing
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I heard a story, and I know people are going to be joining really soon. It looks like maybe one person is on so far. A couple people are on, but just really quick before we get started, because people need to know how serious this disease is. Heard a story today. A woman that I work with actually lost her dad last night, yesterday sometime. And her grandmother was exhibiting symptoms, so they were getting her tested and everything to see if she actually had the virus. And unfortunately, her grandmother passed today.
I'm sorry.
And so this is real.
Yeah.
It is happening within our communities. It is happening around the world, and we need to take it seriously.
We
Mm-hmm.
do.
Just really quick, can you just, either one of you guys, can you just check Facebook, make sure we're live, we're good, everybody can see
Uh,
everything and hear, okay?
I'll
Yeah.
We should be fine. We should be good now.
I'll check through my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm on right now.
1 second. Uh, there's alert.
Most importantly, I look good.
I am tech savvy, but when it comes
Oh
to
no, Kiana, can you take care of this?
Yeah,
thank
I'm looking right
you.
now.
Come
I'm looking right now.
on
Yeah,
now.
thank you.
I'm not seeing anything on live.
You see anything on my live?
My wife,
Uh-uh.
my wife is checking right now. She's doing
Okay.
because I invited her. I invited so many people.
Yeah, so did I.
Yeah, that they would.
Good. That's
Yeah, I'm
good.
not seeing anything on the your website live. Usually it pops up.
So are you on the business page, the Urban TSYR all together?
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
I have two. I have two pages.
Okay,
So
which page?
Urban TSYR all together. So no spaces.
No spaces. Oh, I'm on the spaces one.
Yeah, so that's the personal page, if you want to call it, and I can have friends and things there.
Oh yeah, we are. I see it.
You see it? Okay. Yeah,
Yep.
I thought I could see that. All right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Hey everybody, it is Woke Wednesday, and we're gonna get woke today. Okay.
Mhm.
I am so happy to have people tuning in to hear from our special guests, hear what they have to say, and share on the topic of healthy eating as it relates to mental health. So, welcome Wednesday. For those of you that don't know what it is, and most people don't because it's new, it's a series that explores relevant topics of discussion to help us stay woke, remain current and informed, and also, or to get woke. Some of us need to know a little something, right? Learn a little something as well, something new, gain a new perspective on what's happening in the world, in our communities, and in our personal lives in order for us to remain healthy, happy, and whole. All right, so we have two guests today that will be speaking with us. We'll start with Chef Kiana Yearwood. She is a personal chef who has worked tirelessly in areas of nutrition and food and security. She's focused on ensuring that communities of color have access to affordable quality food and food education. She believes it is imperative that people of color have the knowledge and skills to live happier, healthier lives. I do too. Her mission is to reduce the percentage of chronic illnesses in communities of color by providing communities with access to free. Get it? Because a lot of this stuff that Kiana is doing for the community is free. So there's no excuses not to soak up this good information.
Wow.
With free wellness programming. She attended the world famous culinary school, Johnson and Wales University, where she received 2 degrees, not one, y'all, 2. While attending the university, she received the Emerald Lagasse Scholarship for her talent. Go Kiana, go Kiana. So she grows her influence in the fight for healthier communities. She shares her own experience battling obesity as a teenager and what makes her want to keep fighting the good fight. In addition to her advocacy for food security, she is an entrepreneur. She owns Field to Fork, a meal preparation delivery service. The mission is to, based on her passion for healthy food and her need to provide options for communities, showing them that healthy food can be affordable. Her vision is wellness for everyone. All right. So our next guest is Abraham, and help me with pronouncing your last name. Masara?
Yep, Masada.
Masada. Okay. He is a board certified family psychiatrist, psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. Now, these are a lot of letters. I don't know what they stand for, but I know this means something big. FP, MH, NP, NPP. Okay.
It just means a lot of tuition.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right. That focuses on serving children, adolescent, adults, and geriatrics. He studied at Upstate Medical University and earned a master's degree. And you're working on your PhD, I see here.
I am. It's on hold right now, just because, I'm kind of spread, but it will be completed.
It's all good. Experience in emergency medicine in New York City and Syracuse trauma centers. Worked at over 7 years in the trauma centers, and then focus your transition into psychiatry, which is awesome. Wealth of experience here, and your background is to work with a variety of clients from all walks of life, and you offer faith-based, cultural sensitive therapy and medication management.
Yes.
And you also provide bilingual services, which is very needed in our community.
See.
All right. Yeah, so thank you so much for being here. We'll go ahead and get started with the programming. Obviously, you can tell that we have some knowledgeable people here that will be able to share their experience with us so that we can learn something, take something away, and leave this experience and this talk being able to implement healthy ideas and healthy tips for our lives. Kiana, I'm going to start with you. Yeah. So tell me how you got interested in healthy cooking and healthy eating.
So the shortest story to that is as a 16-year-old kid, I was 350 pounds. And I was highly competitive. I was a basketball player. I played 3 sports, but I still was obese. Never let it actually impair me of doing anything. But that was the reality of my family. My family has generational lines of obesity, continued health issues of obesity. And it really hit home to me when the person that I looked up to the most, my grandmother, passed away at the age of 52 from something that the doctors told me was 80% preventable. And when they told me it was 80% preventable, I remember looking at the doctor like I was 10 years old. And I remember looking at the doctor and I was so furious because I was like, if it was preventable, why didn't you prevent it? Like, why didn't you do anything to prevent it if you're telling me that it was 80% preventable? So then I remember going into the dietitian's office and her looking me straight in my face and saying, if you don't do something about your weight, you will be your grandmother at 52 if you get there. And I said to myself, no, that's not what I'm not gonna take that as so. And I remember my mother crying. And for me, my mother is my heart and I don't like to see her cry. And I remember her crying, saying like, I don't know what to do. And the dietitian simply gave a paper to her and pushed it to her and said, this is what you do, or weight loss surgery is her next step. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying to myself, there's no way these are the only 2 options. There's absolutely no way. So that's what kind of kick-started my interest in nutrition, because I was literally in a fight for my life, because this is something that my family has tried to fight for years and continued to fight. But what really pushed me into doing this type of work is when my 16-year-old brother, he was premature and he has thyroid issues. And we really didn't start to see any problems until he got to the age where he hit puberty and he started to gain the weight rapidly, really quickly. And he at 16 years old was 350 pounds. So I was like, this is not going to be our family lineage. This is not going to be our line. This is not what we're doing. I'm not going to let this happen. So when in college, I was doing culinary arts already, but I decided to also major in nutrition because I wanted to see what food and how food played a part in our lives, because we knew what we were eating wasn't good, but we didn't know how it played a part in our life. So that's the main reason why I got started in this line of work.
Yeah, wow. And that's a powerful story. And I think you can hear the passion, right, behind this line of work.
Yeah.
When you talk about your story and how it impacted your family, yourself, and you talk about that cycle, right? The cycle of healthy, non-healthy eating, unhealthy eating, and we'll get into cycles of even mental health, right? In our families, in our lineage, in our cultures, in our communities. And that's something that will continue on if we don't get woke, right? If we don't
Mhm.
listen up to the experts, right? The experts that are on the line right now, but the people that are trying to share information with us so that we can make the necessary changes that we need to make as individuals, as families, and as communities. So, just to piggyback on that, because I think you gave me a little bit of it already on why it's important to you, but I'm in the community, I'm sitting on the line right now, and, I'm still buying prepared foods and packaged foods and things like that because they're cheap or they are quick and easy. Tell me why the community should care about eating healthy. Tell me why, we should be interested in making that change.
Well, the first reason why is because it affects especially Black and Brown communities at a higher rate than it does any other ethnicity. But when asking this question, I wanted to dial into this community currently right now, Syracuse.
Yeah.
And I always like to give people the actual fact, the actual study, things that you can actually look online right now. If I was to give you a link and actually see the real truth, a lot of the times information is online, we just don't look for it.
Mhm.
So as of 2016, this is a study that was put on, I believe, the Health Assessment Improvement Plan from 2016 to 2018 in Onondaga County.
Mhm.
As of a unhealthy diet, it's the leading risk factor this is in US, it's the leading risk factor in more than 500,000 US deaths in 2016 in the United States.
Mm.
And as of Onondaga County from 16 through 18, this was a recent assessment, overweight and obesity presents a challenge of more than 27.9% of Onondaga County overweight or morbidly obese. 35.1.
You're not talking about like in New York State.
No, I'm talking about in
Like,
Onondaga
right
County.
here, like in Onondaga
No,
County.
I'm talking about in Onondaga County. Compared to the New York State rate, which is 17.3%.
Okay, we got a problem.
Hmm?
Okay, so we got a problem.
Yeah, we have a huge problem. We have an absolutely huge problem. And 35.1% of children and adolescents in Onondaga County are overweight or obese.
Our kids. Yeah.
It's a
So
shame when you can get a chopped cheese sandwich on the South Side for $2.50, but a head of broccoli is $6 and it only feeds one person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the
Or
reason
you
why
go
I
to
say
a restaurant, right? And the salad is $15 and the burger is $7,
mm-hmm.
Carry on.
And those are huge discrepancies, and I absolutely understand those are huge discrepancies. But the thing, the matter about it is that we don't have enough education on food education. We don't have people out there telling people how to properly shop, how to properly prepare foods, how to properly do those things. We don't have people out there being advocates for food education. We have people out there wanting to get a profit. And I perfectly understand we have to live. But the realization is that our children are suffering, our adults are suffering, people in Black and Brown communities are suffering from underlying health conditions. And I know with the current state of the world that we're in, we're starting to see a lot of people worry about underlying health conditions. But I always tell people, why are we worried about it when a pandemic happens? Why aren't we worried about it every single day of our lives? Because just because it happens at a slow rate doesn't mean it's any less of a problem. We're seeing it at a rapid rate right now, and it's making us super anxious. But the realization of it is that this is no different than when it was happening before, just at a slower rate.
Right. Our families are still suffering.
Yeah, people are still suffering, especially, elderly. They talk about how higher risk populations, elderly, people with disorders. All that is still happening every single day, not just in the pandemic.
Right, right. So now we're listening up, and it's a great time then to have this conversation. Because while we got some ears, let's take advantage of having people tuning in, listening up, paying attention to the news because of this issue with the pandemic going on. And hopefully, as we go out of this pandemic, we go out of it better educated and better prepared, right? So tell me then, I'm a person that I'm on the line, and I'm kind of sold. All right, you got me. You tugging at my heartstrings here. My kid is maybe a little overweight, or I am myself, and I want to do something to make a change. What is the simplest way to get started on making a change as it relates to incorporating healthy foods into your diet?
The biggest thing is throw out all the processed food. That's one of the easiest things.
And what is that? Because everybody doesn't understand what processed foods are.
Yeah, I was just about to explain that. So what that means is the biggest thing that shook me to my core, and you can ask anyone that knows me, I literally almost cried about it when this whole pandemic thing happened and the grocery stores were going frantic. The biggest thing I said is, if I go to this grocery store right now, I can buy everything I need. Whereas the average person will say there's nothing left on the shelves.
Mm.
And when I went, that's exactly what happened. I started seeing everyone on Facebook and social media say, I can't buy, there's nothing in the stores. When I'm sitting in the produce section and everything is absolutely full.
Mm.
So what processed food means is anything that's in a can, everything that and the thing that mind boggles me is that we have the standardized diet that they put, the plate now, it changes every 5 years. And the first thing they tell you on this standardized diet plate is that to remove processed food. But the first thing they told you when the pandemic hit was to go grab the processed food, was to go grab your canned items, was to go grab the canned beans, was to go grab those instant box of mashed potato. It's crazy that in a pandemic that they tell you to get the very thing that isn't going to help you in the first place. So what processed food mainly is the shortest way to explain it is anything in a box, anything that's in a can, anything that sits on a shelf life for a year or so is processed food. You have to think about it as you have to think about what is put in that to keep it on the shelf for that long period of time. Food should not stay on the shelf for a year or some odd time. It's not meant to do that. So anything that's processed is anything that's in a box, anything that's in a can, anything that you are not making yourself.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's the first thing that you can do. And probably the best thing that you can do is to not gravitate towards those box and canned items because they're loaded with sodium.
Mm-hmm.
But just to be fair,
go ahead.
Just to be fair and for argument's sake,
Sure. I know
we don't know how long, this pandemic is going to last. I mean, depending on what news outlet you listen to, some people say year 2022, others say in a month. So, when we talk about those processed food, is it safe to say, Kay, because it's your profession, the processed foods are the non-perishables. And if you don't know how long this is going to last, I think it's logical to have non-perishables. So the next question would be is, how can you make those non-perishables a little healthier for yourself?
Yeah, so that's always the question for me. And I say a lot of the times, the non-perishables you can make yourself. And that's a lot of the time it's healthier when you make it yourself. So for example, beans, canned beans. A lot of the time there's a juice that has salt and a lot of times it has additives.
Mm-hmm.
The healthiest way to do that is get dried beans. A lot of the times there are more of them. You can stretch them longer and you can use it in whatever time that you can use it. Whereas if this thing does stretch out for a year or so or some odd, dry beans are already dried. You have to put water in them and you have to cook them. So you can keep them in the cupboard a longer amount of time and they're a lot healthier for you than actually buying canned beans. The same thing. Now, speaking of produce, people always ask me about produce. Well, you can't lengthen the time of produce. Yes, you can. It's called a freezer. You freeze your produce. So the quick trick that I tell people all the time is that get produce that doesn't wilt when you unfreeze it. So the things like lettuce, you can't freeze lettuce because the minute it defrosts, it gets wilty. But things like cabbage, collard greens, those hardcore greens, you can freeze those things for longevities of time, and they will be fine. Pop them out of the freezer, put them in anything that you're cooking in. There's ways to go about not getting those foods. Same thing as I tell people all the time, box mashed potatoes. You can freeze mashed potatoes, but you have to understand how to properly freeze them so that when you unfreeze them, they're not watery and they don't taste like paper. So a lot of the programs that I'm doing currently, that I've been doing, have always emphasized on those things, that, things in a can. I understand that we're going through this time, but there are ways that you can use produce, and you can produce yourself. You can freeze it yourself. I think a couple of weeks ago, I put on my Instagram when this whole thing first came out. That was the first thing I put out on how to can food, how to freeze food, because those are the techniques that you need to have to ride this thing out as long as it does.
Yeah, and I actually saw that, and I don't know if you saw my, it was just, I put up a story where I cut up fruits and vegetables, and I only did that because I saw what you put up.
Oh.
So I was like, oh, that's a great idea. And I did the same thing. I ran to the store. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I did get some cans.
Mm-hmm.
I did get
that. But that's the natural instinct in us.
It is the natural instinct, and I'm so glad that you shared alternatives to doing that, right? Because we don't necessarily have to do that all the time. But my thinking was, okay, well, same like you, Abraham. If this goes any longer, because those cans are still in my basement, I don't plan to really eat them. I try to eat healthy, fresh foods, either fresh produce or frozen, but I wanted to have them in case this lasted a little bit longer than anybody knows. I would be able to have them. And what kind of crazy stuff go through your head, like,
yeah,
we might, because of the pandemic, maybe we might not have electricity, so then what am I going to do? I don't have a freezer, you know what I mean? So stuff was going through my head. So that's part of the reason why. But I'm glad that you share that with us, because those are helpful tips for us to consider. Instead of buying these things that are unhealthy, we can make foods healthy for us so that we can continue a healthy lifestyle even through a pandemic, right? So thank you for sharing that. I do want to go over and talk a little bit with you, Abraham, to bring in, I want to at least, initially talk to you about how you got interested in mental health, right? And what prompted you, to go into this field, and then rapidly move right into the relationship between unhealthy eating and mental health issues. So just start by telling us how you got interested in mental health.
Yeah, sure. I'll try to keep it brief. So, as I mentioned, I was doing emergency room medicine for over a decade, and I graduated from registered nursing school at a fairly young age because I'm a cancer survivor. So I did my high school through the hospital, and who's gonna fail a kid fighting cancer? So I got straight A's, right? So I got accepted to a good nursing school, and I got my RN, and things were going well. I was 19, working as an RN, but then I started noticing some mood changes, things that weren't linear, didn't make sense. Things are going well, but yet things, I'm feeling blue or antsy, or whatever the case may be. It didn't make sense to me. So, because of that, like a lot of brothers, I grew up in Harlem. So like a lot of my brothers that I grew up with, we developed maladaptive behaviors, such as I got to smoke a blunt every hour on the hour. I'm going to hurt somebody. And then I realized, while going to college and having that type of habit, it was like, wait a second, this is not sustainable. Something's not right. So I took my time, started, researching things, and, I went to my first doctor's appointment, and I'm like, listen, man, I can't feel joy. I don't understand what's going on. And they started, I'll tell you that part of the story of how Black and brown people are treated compared to the counterparts. But I was treated. I'm sorry.
Health disparity, you mean?
You got it, health
Okay.
disparity.
Okay.
So I fell into that, and they gave me what I like to call jailhouse regimen. And if I go back to your email, one of your questions, were how do our people look at mental health? And unfortunately, they tend to access mental health once they've reached that rock bottom, whether it's addiction, incarceration,
Yeah.
family, disruption. And when it gets to that point, I am a provider. When it gets to that point, the first thing you want to do is decrease the intensity of the symptomology. And at times, by doing that, people overprescribe medications such as Seroquel, Thorazine, and if you know anyone that's done time or a stretch, you've heard the term the Thorazine shuffle, where people are drooling, down their mouths and so on and so on. So anyway, so I had my own personal battle, and then once I surpassed it, shopping around at different physicians that would care for me, I realized, like, wait a second, the mind gets ill, but the soul doesn't. And if whatever your mind, it tells you what it is, you're going to believe it regardless of what your peers are telling you.
Yes.
So that was more interesting than anything. Albert Einstein has a great quote. He says, psychiatry without God is useless, but psychiatry with God makes sense. Something along those lines. And I love that quote. But anyway, going back to the story, how I got into mental health, I realized, wait a second, there's a disease process in the brain. The brain's not perfect. No matter how intelligent you are, no matter how many honor rolls, you can still have some pathology in there.
Mm-hmm.
So once I got into remission, I started to explore, get to know different people. And then I decided, hey, you know what? Let me get my master's in psychiatry and let me practice, psychiatric nurse practitioner. I got my first position. I don't have to mention the facility, but what I noticed was it was a lot of cookie cutter medicine. It wasn't individualized, but more importantly, which has been documented, is the disparity. We can have a minority with the very same complaint, same demographic, age, and gender, and then have someone of, let's say, the Caucasian race with the same exact complaint, same demographics, and guaranteed they're treated differently. And the article specifically says that the provider tends to see the minority people as like, well, you're a minority. You must have that level of stress because you're a minority. But if it was the counterpart,
that's your normal life. That's just
right.
what it is.
Exactly. But then the counterpart, it's a little different. It's like, oh, wait a second, you shouldn't be feeling that way. You're a citizen. We must help you out appropriately. So once I realized that's what was going on, I decided to start my own private practice. And we're the first and only minority-owned mental health clinic with both medication management and therapy in Onondaga.
Wow. That's really interesting what you said about the health disparities. So I've heard that this happens for pain as well.
Yes.
So say, for example, a person of color comes in and is complaining about pain that they feel, right? Yes. And there are studies that show that medication is not offered to people of color in the same ways that it is offered to non-people of color, right? Because people of color, you can endure this. How much are you really in pain? And so that even prescriptions for pain medication is different according to cultural differences or by a health provider.
Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, immediately, again, and I can be guilty of the same. I'm going to be very transparent tonight. When I did emergency room medicine, I fell into that same criteria where it's just like, wait a second, are you drug seeking? Wait a second, you smoke marijuana, how can you be in pain? Mm-hmm. But then, of course, as I evolved and matured, I'm like, no, this is not right. A good example is the sickle cell clients. This is a while ago, but the sickle cell clientele, very frequently are looked upon as drug seekers. But no one knows that pain with cell sickles. When
Right.
that cell sickles and it occludes the joints and you have that severe pain, you need pain relief, you know. But sometimes it's just like, oh, they're just drug seeking. They're not in sickle cell crisis, when all you have to do is measure the reticulocytes, which are the young red blood cells that will lead you to knowing if they are in sickle cell crisis. But a lot of times that step was skipped over. It was
Mhm.
skipped over.
Wow. Wow. And then just another really quick, you were talking about um how things are looked at differently. So I know I attended a meeting where um it was a meeting that was talking about gifted children and what sort of attributes they display as being gifted. And as they were talking, they were saying like low attention span, not being able to sit still, and all of these different things. And I'm thinking to myself, in my community, that's called ADHD, and you get medicated for that. And I'm in this meeting and they were telling me this is a gifted child. But this was not a meeting where we were talking about Black and brown kids primarily. We were talking about other children.
Right.
And this is how they were looking at their children and labeling them that way. But we in this community, our children get labeled a different way,
Absolutely.
exhibiting the same characteristics. So how does that make sense? Right?
There's a study, and I'm going to use small numbers just to make the math simple. So they took 20 children, mixed races, but for simplicity, let's just say 10 of them were minority and 10 of them were Caucasian. They put them in a room so that they can play. On the other side of the room, behind a glass mirror, there were several adults, let's just say 10 adults, and their job was, I'd like you to guess what age these children are. And all of them were the same age. They were 10. However, after the study was concluded, at least 100% of the minority children were assumed to be older than 10, and the Caucasian children were either 10 or younger. That tells me that our innocence is removed from the moment we're born.
Very early, right? Our girls are fast. Our boys are bad. This labeling, right? And we're getting into some stuff. We're getting into some heavy stuff, right?
We are.
And it's important that we do. It is really important that we do, but this only means that the conversation has to continue. The
Absolutely.
conversation it can't stop here because there's so much more that we have to explore, delve deeper into so that we have full understanding of what we're dealing with here. But I am going to bring us back to food.
Yes.
I want to bring us back because that is the topic of this particular discussion as it relates to mental health. And I had a question, and this is one that I wasn't really sure the answer of. To me, it could almost go vice versa. And the question is, um, so what comes first? Is it unhealthy eating that leads to mental health issues? Or is it mental health issues that lead to unhealthy issues? Like, is it the chicken or the egg? Or in
Right.
some cases, both?
It's bi-directional, and it's really dependent on the diagnosis that we're targeting. I mean, if the
Mhm.
anxiety occurs first, then you have comfort eating, and comfort eating tends to be high in sugars and starches. And I'm pretty sure Kay, you could co-sign me on that, right?
Yep, correct.
Then if it's a low self-esteem and they eat these processed foods and these foods in high sugars, they're going to feel these moments of, oh wow, I feel good again, I feel happy, I feel confident. So that turns into a cycle of, okay, eating makes me feel good. And remember, we're creatures of habit.
Yeah.
We do things 28 times. It's part of us. That's why rehabs are 28 times, or 28 days. But so it's bi-directional. You see, I can't say it's one way or the other. It really is dependent
It
on
depends.
the diagnosis and also the medication that's prescribed. I mean, if we have young, brothers and sisters suffering from, a psychotic disorder, whether it's schizophrenia or bipolar, unfortunately, a lot of these medications cause you to
Correct.
suffer from metabolic syndrome, and that's weight gain, cholesterol, sugar issues. However, I know my girl Kay got the recipe to avoid metabolic syndrome. And if you don't mind, Kay, um, um, cinnamon, which is natural, 5,000 milligrams of cinnamon a day does wonders for your metabolic system and weight.
I like cinnamon. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Mhm. You agree, Kay?
Yeah, so mainly what piggybacking off of what Abe said, a lot of people, I tend to have this new approach to medicine. It's it's coming up in a way or form of healthcare, but a lot of healthcare professionals haven't adapted to it. Um, the healthcare professionals that I work with, this is what they do every single day, and they have adapted to it. And a term that I use is called functional medicine.
Mm.
And when I say functional medicine, meaning a lot of the times, let's take hypertension. Hypertension usually a lot of the times is a symptom to an underlying problem that is happening. Instead of treating the hypertension as the disease, we take it as it is a symptom of something that is happening that is deeper.
Right.
So we are not just treating it with just, hey, we're going to put you on medication or drugs. We are treating it and saying, okay, something bigger is happening than what we're seeing with the eye. And we go through an array of testing, and we go through it for a reason, because a lot of the times there's a lot of components that factor into these things. It's either toxic overload, what you eat. It's so complex, and what we do is we look into all those things. And a lot of the times people come to us, I hate to say it this way, but a lot of the times people come to us as a last resort because the healthcare system does not work for them. They've been on the medication, they've been on the protocols, they've been on this, and it's not working for them.
Right.
So then, they come to us as a last resort because they start looking into holistic medicine, and they start trying to understand these things. And then they go to the herbalist, they go to all these things, and then they find us and they're just like, look, I've tried everything in the book. This is the last resort. If this doesn't work, then it doesn't work. So when I say functional medicine, that's what I mean by saying we don't just treat the actual disease. There's something happening that is causing the actual disease. And whether that is dealing with food, this is why we deal with medical professionals, because instead of saying you're holistic, you're healthcare, we're putting them together and saying we're backing science with actual food, instead of this divided line where people go off and say like, oh, well, holistic medicine isn't really medicine. When we have people who are being treated on holistic medicine and they're actually receiving benefits from it. So my biggest thing a lot of the times, and I find it hard, but I keep pushing, is that we want to integrate the two. We don't want to just be like holistic medicine is the way to go. No, we want to be like, look, this is our way, this is your way. Let's come together and give people the best possible chance of getting healthy that they can.
And if I'm hearing you correctly, Kay, I think what I understood was we tend to treat clients symptomatically as opposed to getting to the underlying cause.
Right.
And to get to the underlying cause, it's a combination of holisticity and Western medicine. And I'm in 100% agreement with you. And just to add really quick, again, I practice psychiatry, and I will tell you, we overly diagnose depression and anxiety when it comes down to one of few things: diet, lifestyle, and we can't forget, again, I do faith-based, our moral compass. A lot of depression and anxiety is conjured up by poor decisions because of lack of education in our community. And that is something that needs to be addressed. You have your moral compass, and then you have pathology. And in my opinion, it's that depression and anxiety is just overly diagnosed when it can easily be make better decisions, have your moral compass, intact, but more importantly, we are what we eat.
Yeah.
Those three factors.
We are what we eat. And so that's why in our body is our temple, right? So if we really do believe that, then we should only be putting things in it that are helpful for our body and not, going to tear our body down, right? That would be the idea.
Yeah, but we lack the education to do so, especially in Black and Brown communities. Because the thing about me is that I'm an advocate for Black and Brown community because that's where I am. But I do also work on the other side. And on the other side is health and wellness is pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. Whereas for us, it's not.
Where is that push coming from? Is it the schools? Is it the is it the culture? Is it
it's their culture? It's their natural culture to be healthy because they have, I'm quoting one of my clients, because I like to ask my clients that don't really know what the other side of the spectrum is and what they believe. And one of them said to me, he says, health was always pushed in my family. He said, it may not have been for the best of reasons. He's like, but health was always pushed for my family because they always said, if you're going to get to the top, how are you going to get there if you're not going to be well enough to even see it?
Oh, man. And no, in our community, yes, we talk about getting to the top, but we push through work, push through pressure. Bus creates diamonds. You just keep going. It's all about the hustle. It's not about health.
And that's the complete difference that I see in a lot of my clients on two different types. Because obviously I'm getting paid to sit with them and go through them and all this other stuff. But on the other side, with my clients, with my Black and Brown clients, I'm doing it for free because this is where I come from. This is what I do. And this is who needs it the most. So a lot of times I tell my clients, I'm like, you're funding the people I actually want to work for. Because not saying I don't want to work for you, but my community needs it the most because it's not advocated, it's not pushed, it's not worried about. Like I said, my own experience going to a dietitian and her pushing a paper in front of me and saying, follow it.
Go do that.
This is not just my story. This is a lot of people's story out there that I listen to in the community saying, I've been to the doctors, I've been on dialysis, I've done this for years, and no one's helping me. And then they come to me and I actually sit and listen to them. And it's much better hearing from a person that actually understands it. And this is why I try to work with a lot of professionals that work with different types of people, because a lot of times what I'm seeing, especially with certain doctors that I refuse to work with, is that they only are comfortable with the connections in which they can make with their client. So when going to a dietitian as a kid and her pushing a paper simply in front of me, that looked to me, that sounded like, you don't believe I could do this.
Right.
Because I come from a background where it's not necessarily pushed.
Right. And that wasn't spending time with you. That wasn't spending time with you. That wasn't really trying to help you. That was like, you know what, done this before, probably not going to work, but here you go.
Yeah.
It's my job. Right. Yeah. And so, you know what? We are 4 minutes away from the full hour. I know you can't believe that, and I know no one else can believe that. We've covered a lot, but there was so much more to cover.
May I say one thing before we conclude?
Well, let me say this. We're actually not, if you guys have 15 more minutes.
Yeah.
If you guys have 15 more minutes, I got time.
I do.
I got time.
And I think the people that are listening in tonight, they're getting so much value out of what we're discussing here today. I think it warrants another 15 minutes. So why don't we do that? We'll take another 15 minutes. And then before we end, I definitely want to get your contact information, all of that good stuff, so we can let people leave with leads on how they can reach out to you and get more information and maybe schedule appointments.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So did you want to say
I
something?
just want to make a quick point off of what Kiana said. She made a very valid point, but there's a variable that's not spoken about. And, in our community, we lack the knowledge of self-investment and self-love, which is the catalyst to a lot of these comorbidities, let's say, that we suffer from. Let's take, for instance, the COVID-19. People aren't realizing that this distant isolation are affecting my brothers that did a stretch in prison. They're being triggered by their trauma because of this isolation. It's such a ripple effect, what the COVID is doing. But going back to, what Kiana said, the variable there's a lack of self-investment. People don't know what self-investment means. That doesn't mean stacking money, stashing your dough, getting bread. No, self-investment is eating like Kiana's trying to teach you. Eating for tomorrow, drinking, water. We're 75% made of water. And people don't even drink 20% of water in their daily intake. And there's also a lack of self-love. And that's a systemic issue, the lack of self-love. So this all kind of ties in, you know what I'm saying?
It does. It definitely does. All tie in, because if you don't love yourself, then maybe you don't feel
you got
right.
it.
Like it makes sense for you to eat healthy. I'm gonna eat what I want to eat. I mean, I'm gonna die some kind of way, or my life doesn't mean enough to make these kind of positive changes, right?
This is why I've advocated for people getting psych evaluations before doing an actual program with me. And the reason why I do that, because that's majority of the battle. Your mind is majority of the battle. I can't do my job if you aren't mentally prepared to do yours.
If the mind ain't right.
And it's the same thing with weight loss surgery, right? You could have it, but after you have the surgery, you go back to those same eating patterns because this is not right. That's why it all plays in. You said something interesting to me the other day when we were talking, Abraham. You said you can't have physical health without mental health.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Talk to me about that connection, right? Because you also said that it all starts up here. So Talk to me about, not even going to the point of physical health, right? We're not there yet. We want to get there. But how do we start with the mental health piece and shoring that up so that we can eventually get there?
Right. So with mental health, and remember, health is a spectrum. There's no, okay, you're healthy, you're not. It's a spectrum depending on circumstances. But, with the mental health and the diet, it's correlated. I mean, you asked the question earlier, which one comes first, and I mentioned is bidirectional. And I'm sorry, sister, can you re-ask your question again? I kind of lost my train of thought because I had a lot of things to say.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering how the physical health piece, it can't happen unless we have the mental health piece in check.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So we have a lot of neurotransmitters in our brain. And believe it or not, those neurotransmitters aren't only for emotional and mood. It's also motor skills and the way you move and so on and so on. So if there's a dysregulation in, let's say, your serotonin, your norepinephrine, immediately by default, you're going to fall into, depression, which can lead to obesity. So that's the pathological. But then you also have circumstantial, situational mood changes, situational depression, situational anxiety that we haven't processed. And in our communities, we suffer from maladaptive behavior. And what is the maladaptive behavior? And Kay, you could co-sign me on this. We overeat, and let's keep it real. Fatty, greasy foods are delicious, and they make us feel great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
culturally a part of their staples. Culturally.
You got it. Right? You got it. It's comfort food, there's Southern cooking, the collard greens and the fried chicken.
Hence the name.
You got it.
Hence the name. There's an emotional attachment to food, and we all know this. We do it all the time. We can't, if you think about Thanksgiving, there's that thing you can't not have. When you think about Thanksgiving, what do you think about? It's consumed on overeating. They push the fact of overeating on Thanksgiving, and we wonder why we have an emotional connection to food.
Ooh.
A lot of the times people who come to me have an emotional attention to food because it's what they ate when their grandmothers passed away.
Right.
It's what they did when they tried to get through a tough situation. But for me and my family, we ate because that was one thing the world couldn't take from us.
You got it. And it was a way to show affection and love. Now, in my culture, I'm Dominican. I'm Dominican American. And this is going to sound really messed up. But in a Dominican culture, if you got a chubby kid and overweight, they're healthy.
They're healthy.
You got a skinny kid that's within the BMI. Oh, no, they're skinny. They need to eat more. So again, it's that lack of education.
The same in Africa. I've heard that it's very similar. It's a status symbol of wealth.
Yes,
you're eating good, right? You're eating good, so that means that you got a little weight on your body. Your family is maybe a little bit more well off than some other families that are not eating in the same ways.
You got it, but bringing it back to Syracuse, where we live, where we reside, and where we're trying to make an impact. I mean, again, as I mentioned earlier, you can get a chopped cheese sandwich for less than $5, and 2 people can eat off of those because they're at least about a foot long. And you try to spend $5 for a crown of broccoli, you're not feeding many people once you cook it. Steam it a little bit.
Yeah, and going off of that, that's the mentality that a lot of people that come to me have. And the hardest part is breaking that mentality because people don't believe it's possible. But when I show them that it is possible, and it's all depending on the lens in which you view things, because people always tell me it's expensive to eat healthy, and it's not. I always say the reason why it's expensive to eat healthy is because you guys want the best of both worlds. You want to eat healthy and you want to eat your comfort food. So when you go, I do intentional things when taking on clients because I want to see their habits. I want to see how they view things. And one of the things I do is I go to the grocery store with my clients and I don't say anything. I just simply watch how they shop, watch what they put into their carts. And I tell them, don't change on my account. If you in your mind were saying, I wanted to eat healthy, what would you do? And a lot of them, half of the time, more than half of the time, probably 90% of the time, will grab produce that they don't know how to use because they think it's important to eat. And then they'll grab all that produce and then they'll go into the middle aisles and also grab what it is that they want to eat. And then they go to check out. And the next thing you know, their grocery prices have doubled. Yes. And I always tell them, you can't have the best of both worlds. You need to pick which you want. Do you want to be healthy or do you not want to be healthy? And if you do want to be healthy, I can show you a way to eat healthy on a budget. I've taken families with 7 people that normally spend $330 on food and have cut their grocery bills to at least $200, maybe $210. So it is possible.
Well, let me ask you a question, Kate, trying to, gel spirituality, science, dietitian, and psychiatry. How do you feel about episodic fasting? I mean, the Bible talks about fasting to become, grounded. What kind of fasting would you recommend for our community, taking into considerations that we could be a bit hard and no, I'm not listening. I don't, those kind of things. Yeah. What kind of fasting would you recommend that I can tell my clients?
So the biggest thing right now, I know it's everywhere, but it actually works when you do it correctly. And it's intermediate fasting. A lot of the times people take intermediate fasting and they do it completely wrong. The best time to do an intermediate fast is between 4 and 12 noon when your digestive system is at its peak. Why? Because there's absolutely nothing in your system. And in that time, things are getting pushed out of your system. The chemicals, the toxin, the dopamine in your brain, all that stuff is getting regulated between that time. So a lot of the times we eat during that time, we'll eat sugary foods, we'll eat fattening foods, we'll eat all these things.
You've been watching me?
We'll eat all these things and wonder why we have a toxic and chemical overload that's happening in our brain because of the comfort food that we're eating in the morning. So that's the one thing I would suggest is intermediate fasting in the morning between those times.
From 4 a.m. to what time?
12 noon.
Wow, 4 a.m. to 12 noon. But I can drink water, of course.
You can drink water. What you can drink water. You can drink cucumber juice, lemon juice, all those ginger shots, tonics, all those things that people drink during that time. You can do during that time. But the biggest thing.
How about tea?
Yeah, tea. Just no caffeine.
Okay, yeah.
You can drink tea. The biggest thing between those times, it's just the reason being, a lot of times as Americans, we grab the Dunkin' Donuts, we'll grab the coffees, we'll grab all these things, and we have an emotional connection to those things. Because I know a lot of people who cannot go without a coffee a day. That's an emotional connection to those. So when doing intermediate fasting, the biggest thing, the purpose of doing it for me and what I do for my clients is to push the toxins out of your body and also regulate your brain chemicals.
So challenge me tomorrow, 4 a.m. All right?
Yeah.
I wake up at 4 a.m. every day. For breakfast, what should I have so that it could benefit my mood, benefit my overall physical health?
Fruit.
Walk me through it. Fruit. Any specific fruit?
So low glycemic fruits. So something like a banana is very high in sugar. So that's not something you would eat. So a lot of the time people drink smoothies and they tell me, oh, I drink a smoothie. And I was like, how much of banana did you put in it? Oh, I put a whole banana. That's the same thing as eating like a muffin in the morning. So you want to eat.
No.
Wow, I thought
all those days I was eating a banana, I was really eating a muffin.
So when I say it's like eating a muffin, is because it's the same thing. It's that comfort sugar that a lot of the time people eat in the morning. Yes, a banana is healthy, but it's the same thing as that comfort sugar. It's still doing the same thing as the sugar that you're eating, the muffin. So when I say low glycemic foods, things like plums, right now the season's coming up where it's probably cantaloupe, watermelon, all those kinds of seasons. So those are the things you want to start eating because they're low in sugar and they're not going to spike that index.
From 4 to 12, that's what I should eat.
From 4 to 12, yes. Along with, and you will start to see, a lot of people will always tell me, you'll start to see that your body will actually get full when doing like celery juice or cucumber juice, eating the fruit, but their energy is a lot more better in the morning than when doing the coffees or doing the muffins and all those things.
But I was told we gotta have protein.
We don't have to have protein.
Where's the protein?
We don't have to have protein. No, a lot of the times, so what happens is your biggest meal should be at lunchtime. Why? Because that's when the window of your digestion system has closed and your body's ready to eat. A lot of times the meals that we eat at dinner are too heavy because then we go to sleep after. And then we wake up and we have another big meal and our body's getting no break to actually digest food.
Gotcha.
Wow.
See how much we're learning today on Woke Wednesday?
I'm woke. Thank you.
I am too. I feel like people that are watching are learning stuff, right? But I'm like, oh, I need a notepad.
No. This is good.
It's really good. It's really good. And so good. We're almost at that additional 15 minutes we added on.
We're done. I want to say one thing really quick. Professionals like Kiona, and I'm speaking to all the insurance companies out there. We need to start reimbursing professionals like Kiona because
started on insurance companies.
We need to. You know why? Because in a heartbeat, I would bring you on board to my private practice so that you can help our people. But unfortunately, folks like UHC and Molina and all these bigwigs, they exploit professionals like you and I, and they don't pay you what you deserve. I want to say that. I had to say that.
Thank you, sir. Because it's the truth. And we only talk the truth on Woke Wednesday. All right. Well, we're going to end with this messages. Yana, I'm going to have the lady go first. What is your message to families that are looking to change their habits to eat healthier, not just during this pandemic, but going forward?
The one thing that I always preach everywhere I go, and people are always like, why do you say this? Because it's true. wellness is for everyone. It's not just for people that can pay for it. It's not just for people that have money. Wellness is something that has been marketed in the mainstream as something that's, you have to have a lot of money for. I like to say wellness is a ladder, and where you are on the ladder determines how much you'll, actually pay for your health. If you're at the top of the ladder where you can pay big dollars to get me, sitting with you every single day, then that's where you are. But if you don't have those, you can also still get the information. And I know there's not a lot of people out there doing it, but this is why I've made it my mission to make sure that no one goes without the information. For me, there should never be a problem with saying, hey, I have this amount of money, what can I do? Instead of, a lot of times people go, oh, hey, you have this amount of money. Well, I need more to give you the full information. I mean, you see it all now. All the health professionals are coming out, sponsoring things, doing all this. Hey, we'll give you free information. But then after, oh, well, you have to pay this amount of money for this kind of information. That's not me, because there's no joy in doing that. So that's one message I always say is wellness is for everyone. And there's a ton of resources that I'm putting out currently right now that people can follow and really start to get the information needed. Because in all honesty, the reason why I created these programs is because this is something I needed when I grew up. And I know this is something that other people need. And I'm no longer waiting for someone else to create it. I'm just going to do it myself.
Nice.
Amen.
And offering that valuable information to our communities is just that, priceless. So tell us how we can find you, and also I think you have something for our guests.
Oh yeah. So we didn't get to, which is fine. We didn't get to the majority of the questions that you sent me, but
I know.
as like I said, I do this because this is something that is in my heart to do. So after this, everyone that's watching is going to receive a free ebook on basic information on how to eat affordable eating. That's what I like to call it. So it's basically an ebook that I created that has basic information on simple things that we talked about. It has about 3 recipes on snacks that kids and adults can eat. Things along the lines of, chips and stuff like that we naturally snack on. What are healthier ways of doing it? So that is what everyone will go away with. And you guys can follow me on Facebook or Instagram. Those are the main 2 that I really have. But I'm in the process of rebranding and doing a whole bunch of stuff. So websites will be coming out, information will be coming out. But for now, those are the 2 platforms that I'm on.
Very nice. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And Pam, please fill me in. Last parting words. What's the final message here that we can take home? And then your contact information, how to get in touch with you.
I guess, pay attention to what Kiana said. It starts, the gut is the second brain. That science has been concrete for a while now. So, the information she disseminated tonight is very valuable. Number 2, your mind is susceptible to illness, just like your lung and your liver. So, and it's hard to know when your mind is ill because what your mind tells you, you believe. If you're struggling and you're not thriving and you lack the ability to feel joy, reach out and get some help. I can promise you that if you decide to go with my services or anyone else's services, my services, I can promise you, I'm very conservative with medications. No one becomes a zombie. And it's all about improving a person's functionality and mood. And the way they can contact me is my clinic number is 315-391-7770. And if you Google my name, Abraham Masara, Masara, and you put iView next to it, that's I- the word view, you'll get my website and you can start the intake. We take all major insurances, Medicaid, Medicare. But the more beautiful thing is you won't feel like you're going to an institution on James Street where it's cookie cutter and gray walls. you're literally coming to a home that happens to have a provider that's going to take care of you.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that's really important, right? You want to be comfortable in the space where you're going to open yourself up and be vulnerable. So that's a really important point. But the other reason why I think it's important is because I feel like I need to make a visit.
Yes.
One, get myself together, like get my mental health together, but also to take a tour, walk
I'd love for you to
around
come
and
over.
show people.
And I
And
love Keona to come over. I love both of you guys. So I guess when the session ends, we'll text each other and then we'll
Yeah.
find a date.
yes, yes,
I
yes.
would
That's
love that.
exactly what we should do. We'll do a little tour and then we can show people the value of what you're doing. And Kiana, the same thing for you. I'd love to come
Oh,
in.
I also want to mention something I forgot to mention. I'm currently connected with an organic farm, sort of organic farm here in Syracuse known as Brady Farm. And the reason why I connected with them is because they have resources that need to get out to the community because they're there and they want to help. But more importantly, what they're doing currently right now is giving out CSA boxes. And for those who don't know what CSA boxes is, pretty much produce boxes. But the one thing that I have connected with them in doing is you won't just get the box. And it's affordable. It's between $11 and $25. You won't just, yes, you won't just get the box. You won't just get the box, but you'll also get programming with the box, meaning demos from me on how to actually use the items in the box and make recipes with them. And also they do take farmers markets coupon, so that we'll go over that. But also the main programming that I'm starting to do is teaching families how to use their assistance program to stretch the food for the month. I know that's a huge thing for families, but a lot of the times we, again, buy the processed stuff when we don't have to.
Right.
So teaching them how to use their resources and stretch it throughout the month.
Very nice. So it sounds like I got 2 visits to make. One to iView and maybe one to Brady Farm. Maybe that makes sense because again, it's about exposure. If we don't know, we don't know. Right? And I have a platform and I'm using this platform to educate, to inform, to uplift. And these are the types of things that I want to be involved in and have my hand in and be able to show people how we can do better and how we can improve. Coming out of this pandemic, we are not going to be the same. We can't afford to be the same. That's a no-go. That's not happening. And so we'll take this time. We'll use Woke Wednesday. We'll use the services that you guys offer. You know, I'm going to be reaching out to other community members to see how they can support us, you know, getting this information and having the awareness of what we should be doing coming out of in this pandemic and coming out of it so that we can be better once we do. So thank you so much for being part of this experience with me. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Every Wednesday, it will be woke because we will be exploring a different topic, okay? And it may be a video, it may be written content, but rest assured it will be content where we will be getting woke and learning things and making ourselves more informative and be able to improve on ourselves. So thank you so much for tuning in. Guys, again, I can't thank you enough. Take care, okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good night.
You too. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.